Playgrounds are supposed to be safe places. Places where kids laugh, run around, and burn off energy while their parents sit nearby watching. But something about playgrounds changes once the sun goes down. The bright colors start looking dull. The empty swings move with the wind, and the silence makes every small sound feel wrong. Most playgrounds have stories, old ones, stories about things people saw, things they heard, or things that happened when no one else was around. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 of them. 3 stories that happened at ordinary playgrounds, the kind that look completely normal during the day, but after hearing these, you might never look at a swing set the same way again. This happened when I was about 10 years old. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood where a small park sat right in the middle of a bunch of houses. It wasn't a big park or anything, just a small playground with 2 swing sets, a slide, and one of those plastic jungle gyms shaped like a rocket ship. During the day, it was always full of kids, but at night, it was completely empty. My house was about a 3-minute walk from the park, and my bedroom window faced directly toward it. From my bed, I could see the swing set through the trees. Most nights I didn't even notice it, but one night I couldn't sleep. I remember checking the clock on my nightstand, 12:03 a.m. The whole house was quiet. My parents were asleep, and there was nothing to do. So I got up and walked over to the window just to look outside. That's when I noticed something strange. One of the swings was moving. At first, I assumed it was the wind, but when I looked at the trees outside, they were completely still. Not even the leaves were moving. And the swing wasn't swaying gently either. It was swinging hard, back and forth, like someone was sitting on it, pumping their legs. I stood there watching for maybe 30 seconds, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The swing wasn't empty. Someone was sitting on it. I couldn't see them clearly because the park lights were dim, but I could see the shape of a person. They were swinging extremely high, higher than anyone normally swings. Every time they went forward, their feet almost reached the top bar of the swing set. The movement looked wrong, too perfect, too smooth, almost like a machine repeating the same motion over and over. I leaned closer to the window, trying to see their face, and suddenly, the swinging stopped. Instantly. No slowing down, no gradual stop. 1 second, the swing was flying through the air, and the next, it was perfectly still. The person just sat there, not moving, not swinging, just sitting. Then, slowly, they turned their head toward my house, toward my window. I couldn't see their face, but somehow I knew they were looking directly at me. And that's when my entire body went cold. I dropped to the floor immediately. Not slowly, not carefully. I just dropped. Something about the way that figure turned its head toward my house made every instinct in my body scream that I shouldn't let it see me. So I stayed there, flat on the floor, staring at the carpet. My heart was pounding so loud I was convinced whoever was outside could hear it. For a long time, I didn't move, not even a little. I just listened. The house was silent. No footsteps outside, no voices, nothing. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I slowly lifted my head just enough to peek over the edge of the windowsill. The swing was empty, completely empty. The chains hung perfectly still. The park looked exactly the way it always did at night. Quiet, dark, normal. And yet something about it felt wrong, like the kind of silence that happens after something has already happened. I stayed at the window for another minute, scanning the playground, but there was no one there. Eventually, I convinced myself I had imagined it. Maybe it really was just the wind. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I mean, I was 10 years old and it was the middle of the night. So I climbed back into bed and forced myself to stop thinking about it. Eventually, I fell asleep. But the next morning, something happened that made it impossible to ignore. Later that day, I went to the park with my friend Tyler. We used to go there all the time after school. Everything looked completely normal. Kids were playing on the slide. Parents were sitting on benches. Nothing felt strange anymore. For a while, I didn't even mention what I saw the night before, but eventually I pointed at the swing set and told Tyler about it. He laughed immediately. He said I probably saw a raccoon or something. So we walked over to the swings, mostly just to prove there was nothing weird about them. Tyler sat on one and started swinging while I stood nearby. And that's when I noticed something. Scratched into one of the wooden support beams. At first, I thought it was just random graffiti, but when I stepped closer, I realized the marks looked fresh, like they had been carved recently. 4 words were scratched deep into the wood. Uneven, messy, almost like someone had done it with a knife or a sharp rock. I leaned closer to read it, and the second I understood what it said, my stomach dropped, because the words carved into the swing set were, "I see you too." Tyler thought it was funny. He assumed some older kid had carved it there as a joke. But I didn't say anything, because the swing I saw moving the night before was the exact same one next to that beam. And something else suddenly hit me, something I hadn't thought about before. From where the swing was positioned, there was only one house you could clearly see from it. Mine. The second story happened when I was 12. At the time, there was a playground near my middle school that everyone used to hang out at after class. It was bigger than the park near my house. There were basketball courts, a field, and a large playground area with a bunch of different equipment. But the one thing everyone remembered about that playground was the slide. It was one of those huge metal slides built into a small hill. You had to climb a ladder at the top of the hill, then slide all the way down to the bottom. But underneath the slide, there was something else. A short metal tunnel. It ran straight through the hill under the slide, just big enough for kids to crawl through. During the day, it was nothing special. Kids used it for games of tag or hide and seek. But at night, that tunnel looked completely different. Dark, narrow, and just deep enough that you couldn't see the other side clearly. One evening, my friend Mark and I were walking home from a convenience store. We had bought a couple drinks and some candy, and we decided to cut through the playground to get back to our neighborhood faster. The sun had already set. The park lights had just turned on. The whole place had that quiet, empty feeling playgrounds get once it gets late. As we walked past the big slide, Mark suddenly stopped, just completely stopped in the middle of the path. I turned around and asked him what he was doing, but he didn't answer right away. He was staring at the tunnel under the slide. Then he pointed at it, and he said quietly, "Did you see that?" I asked him what he meant. He said he thought he saw someone crawl into the tunnel. At first I laughed, because the tunnel was tiny. Only little kids could fit through it comfortably. But Mark didn't laugh. He kept staring at the opening. So eventually, I looked too. At first, I didn't see anything, just darkness inside the tunnel. But after a few seconds, I noticed something. Movement. Very small, very subtle, like someone shifting their body around inside. Mark slowly walked closer to the entrance. He crouched down and leaned toward the tunnel. Then he said, "Hello?" His voice echoed slightly inside the metal tunnel, but no one answered. He waited a few seconds, then tried again. "Hey, is someone in there?" Still nothing. The tunnel stayed completely dark, completely quiet. Something about it gave me a bad feeling, so I told Mark we should just leave. But instead of leaving, he picked up a stick from the ground. He crouched down again and pushed the stick into the tunnel, like he was trying to poke whatever was inside. He moved the stick around for a few seconds, then suddenly, the stick jerked forward, right out of his hand. Not like it got stuck, like someone grabbed it. Mark jumped back immediately. He started laughing nervously, that kind of laugh people do when they're trying to convince themselves nothing weird just happened. He said something like, "Okay, that's not funny," but neither of us were laughing anymore, because a second later, we heard something inside the tunnel. Breathing. Slow, heavy breathing. And it was getting closer.
The breathing was slow, heavy, like someone trying to breathe quietly but failing. Mark and I just stood there, frozen. Neither of us said a word. The breathing kept getting closer, 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 until it sounded like whoever was inside the tunnel was only a few feet away from the opening. I remember my chest feeling tight, like my body knew something was wrong, even if my brain hadn't fully caught up yet. Mark slowly started backing away. I took a step back too, and then suddenly, something moved in the darkness. A hand slowly reached out of the tunnel, but it wasn't a kid's hand. It was an adult's. Long fingers, dirty nails. The skin looked rough, almost gray under the park lights. The hand didn't grab anything. It just rested on the ground outside the tunnel, like it was feeling around, searching. Mark whispered, "What the hell?" And that's when the breathing stopped. For a moment, everything went completely silent. And then, the hand started pulling itself forward, like whoever was inside the tunnel was beginning to crawl out. That was enough. Mark and I turned and ran. We didn't look back. We didn't stop. We just sprinted straight across the playground and out toward the street. Neither of us spoke until we were halfway down the next block. Mark finally stopped and bent over, trying to catch his breath. He kept asking if I saw the hand too. I told him yes. Neither of us really knew what to say after that. We just went home. The next day at school, we told a few of our friends what happened. Most of them thought we were making it up, which honestly I expected. But one girl in our class said something that made the entire room go quiet. She told us her little brother had mentioned something strange earlier that week. Apparently, he and his friends had crawled through that tunnel during recess, and when they got to the middle, they found something inside. Blankets, food wrappers, a backpack. Someone had been living inside the tunnel. At first, the teachers assumed it was just older kids messing around, but after hearing what Mark and I saw the night before, I couldn't stop thinking about it, because if someone really had been staying inside that tunnel, that meant one thing. They weren't just hiding there at night, they were there during the day too, watching kids crawl through, waiting.
The last story happened when I was 16. There's an old playground in my town that was built sometime in the early 80s. Over the years, most of the equipment there has been replaced. The swings were upgraded, the slide was changed, even the jungle gym got swapped out. But there was one thing they never removed: the merry-go-round. It was one of those big metal ones you spin by running around it and jumping on. The paint was chipped and faded, and every time it moved, it made this horrible squeaking sound. Most little kids didn't even use it anymore. Honestly, it just looked creepy. especially at night. One Friday evening after a football game, a few friends and I decided to hang out there for a while. There were 4 of us. Nothing unusual. We were just sitting on the merry-go-round, talking, joking around, doing the normal dumb stuff teenagers do. At some point, my friend Eric stood up and started spinning it. Slow at first, just pushing it around while we sat there. Then he started running faster. The merry-go-round picked up speed. The metal bars started creaking, and the wind from its spinning started hitting our faces. We were all laughing and yelling at him to stop, but he kept going, faster and faster. Eventually, he jumped on with the rest of us. The thing was spinning pretty fast now. We were gripping the bars, just trying to not fall off. Then Eric said something like, "All right, last push." He jumped off, ran a quick circle, and shoved it one more time. The merry-go-round spun hard. Then Eric stepped back and let go. And that's when something strange happened. It didn't slow down. Normally, those things lose speed pretty quickly, but this one didn't. It kept spinning at the exact same speed, maybe even faster. At first, we thought it was just momentum, but after about 20 seconds, it still hadn't slowed down. One of my friends said, "Why is it still spinning?" No one answered. We were all staring at the center of the merry-go-round, because suddenly, someone else was there. A small figure, sitting in the middle, curled up slightly. None of us had noticed them before, which didn't make sense, because we had all been sitting there for at least 10 minutes. Slowly, the figure lifted its head. It was a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Her hair was messy, hanging down in front of her face. None of us recognized her. Eric asked if she was okay. No answer. She just stared at us, completely silent. And the merry-go-round kept spinning, faster and faster. At some point, it was spinning so fast that the rest of us had to jump off. One by one, we all bailed, but the girl didn't move. She stayed perfectly still in the center as the metal platform spun violently beneath her. Eventually, the spinning started slowing down, gradually, until it finally stopped. We all stepped closer, looking toward the middle, but the girl was gone. Not standing nearby, not running away, just gone, like she had never been there at all. One of my friends tried joking about it, saying she must have jumped off when we weren't looking. But something about the whole thing felt wrong, really wrong. The next day, I told my older brother about it. When I described the girl, he got quiet. Then he asked me something strange. He said, "Did she have long hair covering her face?" I told him yes, and he went pale. He told me something I had never heard before. About 15 years earlier, a little girl had died at that exact playground. She fell off the merry-go-round while it was spinning too fast. She hit her head on one of the metal bars, and she died before the ambulance even arrived. According to the police report, there were only 2 kids at the park that day: the girl who died and the kid who was spinning the merry-go-round. My brother knew that kid because it was him. And the reason he refuses to go near that playground anymore is because sometimes, late at night when the park is empty, the merry-go-round still spins by itself. And sometimes, there's a little girl sitting in the middle, just waiting for someone to start spinning it again.